Today we're talking about the recent announcement by the Minister of Finance of South Africa that local businesses must now focus on employing 8 out of 10 locals for any low-level jobs. What is your opinion on that?
I think what we have to put into consideration first is the current economic status of South Africa. And to say in layman's terms, we understand that it's still in a very good margin compared to our Zimbabwean economy. But there are reasons why South African economy is so good compared to our economy. One of the reasons is that it is well managed. So it is in the interest of the South African government to discover any loopholes in the system that would cause the South African economy to go the other way, which is not favorable to the growth of the economy.
Okay, there are Zimbabweans who've been working here since the 80s. Is it fair to tell them to leave now just because the situation has become worse in South Africa?
It depends on how you are taking it. If you ask South Africans, they will tell you he has done very well, he has articulated very well, because they are in need of jobs more than they were before the arrival of, or before the influx of foreigners in this country. So, but if you look from the perspective of Zimbabweans or other foreign nationals, then you realize that they will feel vindicated by that statement. You need also to be putting yourself in the shoes of the South African government or South African officials. What would you do if I'll put it across to you that if you go to Zimbabwe, then you have 70% of the people working in those entities, like restaurants and so on and so forth, being foreign nationals rather than Zimbabweans. Would you think that is acceptable by all standards, or you would want that reversed? The answer is obvious. If you're Zimbabwean, you would say you need clarity, you need things to be sorted, you need corrections there. So I think in a bid to correct that, it may sound like it's a bit too harsh to say those words, but at the same time, it remains correct in the interest of South Africans.
Okay, so the South African government has been implementing a policy called quiet diplomacy to Zimbabwe. Is it fair for them to be harsh on the citizens that are running away from the situation in Zimbabwe, while at the same time hardening the situation here in South Africa so that people can't work? Should the South African government not also be changing from quiet diplomacy to loud diplomacy?
I think the answer is very simple, Honorable Gambakwe. Quiet diplomacy has not worked. It has never yielded any tangible results as far as the situation in Zimbabwe is concerned politically, which actually translates to be economically. So the quiet diplomacy stance has not been working. Even Thabo Mbeki was riding on that wave of quiet diplomacy. Now we see Cyril Ramaphosa, after Jacob Zuma was riding on that particular wave of quiet diplomacy. So it's not working. It's not working at all. Why is it not working? It's causing more problems than good here in South Africa. It's doing more harm than good in South Africa, because if Zimbabwe becomes a well-managed country, then you would see people of Zimbabwe leaving South Africa and other countries to go back to their own land, develop that land, and accommodate even other countries that will be in conflict. If anything, it's actually counterproductive to adopt that stance of quiet diplomacy on the part of South Africa.
Okay, so what should Cyril Ramaphosa do? What role can South Africa play in fixing the problems in Zimbabwe?
I think Cyril Ramaphosa has to actually condemn all the political violence, the abuse of the human rights taking place in Zimbabwe, because it's not working for Zimbabwe, and it's actually affecting South Africa. One of those problems is the influx of foreigners. The truth is, South Africa cannot afford to have a neighboring country like Zimbabwe producing nothing. The SADC region even cannot afford to have a country like Zimbabwe producing nothing. The only antidote to that is the serious condemnation of the political structure or political activities that are taking place in Zimbabwe. Bad practices of governance that causes people to run away from their country to this country or any other country for that matter.
Right, so for a Zimbabwean who is in South Africa now, the border is closed. What should they do? Should they plan to go back home? Should they stay put?
There are two categories of people staying in South Africa, the documented and the undocumented Zimbabweans. I think it is very important for the undocumented to try and have documents. It's not an easy process. Sometimes people have to sleep at home affairs departments all over the country. I also have the liberty to interact with other political players, both from ANC and other political structures in South Africa and political parties. I've been given to their parliament and I spoke to a number of dignitaries, including a couple of shadow ministers for various departments. I've always told them not to forget that what makes us one is more important than what can divide us in South Africa as people of Africa.
Okay, so what is the role of the Zimbabwean government in making sure that the citizens who are here get home if they don't have money, if they've run out of food, if they need to be quarantined? What is the role and what is the process the Zimbabwe government should take?
There is a lot of wishful thinking from Zimbabwean government that we've seen and we've heard over the past 4 decades. They wish they could evacuate people. They wish they could provide food for the people. They wish they could contribute positively against even the COVID-19. But the truth or the reality on the ground is that they are not capable in terms of finance. They lack the financial liberty to be repatriating anyone. You see, before people are repatriated back to Zimbabwe, you must ask what they are going to drink, what they are going to eat when they arrive in Zimbabwe. There's not even clean water coming from our taps in Zimbabwe. So I think the best they can do, if I was part of the government officials, is to try and see if they could exit. They must let go the power, resign, which is a very good thing which is provided even by our own constitution. Emerson Mnangagwa should not be sent to prison because he has resigned. But the moment he resigned on the basis of failure, it's a win-win situation for him and the people of Zimbabwe. So talking about the Zimbabwean government, I think they have no choice. There's no choice, and we shouldn't expect anything from them because the finances are just not available. I think for anything, Zimbabwe is still a couple of billion in debt. So it will be expecting more for them to repatriate people and do all those things that are expected of a normal nation to a very abnormal setup.
Right, Mr. Brian Mubvumbi from Democracy Restoration Party. We've had a nice discussion. You said the South African government is justified to focus on locals for employment, and Zimbabweans who are here should try to get documents if possible and not live here illegally. And you say the Zimbabwe government does not have capacity to repatriate people because they are struggling already with the people that are there. Is there anything else you want to say before we close?
We always encourage Zimbabweans to work together. If you see people that are not documented, please try and help by providing shelter and providing whatever necessary stuff that you can provide so that people can actually have documents and be accepted. But we understand we live like outlaws, most of Zimbabweans in South Africa and elsewhere. But it shall be well. Together we will overcome.
Right. Thank you very much, sir. It was a pleasure talking to you. Let's try to talk again tomorrow, if possible.
Thank you so much. Thanks you to your listeners.
8 out of 10 workers at a restaurant were South African. 2, probably Malawian or Zimbabwe. And today, almost 100% is non-South African.